Yeah. So we should now be on YouTube. I will try to refresh. Great. So I will start the webinar. And we are alive and kicking. And we have a small delay of a few minutes. So sorry for that. There were some technical details which I had to fix with the help of Carolina. And so heartily welcome to everybody on this gray November day. As the Danish poet Henrik Nordbrandt said once, the year has 16 months, not 12, but 16 months. So it's January, February, March, April, blah, 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 September, October, November, December. Yeah. So November is a gray month with really bad weather. And it's so I've brought some flowers. I hope you appreciate from the garden. We have a mild November this year. And yeah. So with this introduction and a further comment on the topic of today, namely the terms which this project has invented, archaeotourism and social media. I mean, it's a bit odd to have a tourism project running in these Corona times. I mean, but we try to use the opportunity to further develop the goals of the project. And so this webinar today is a part of that endeavor. Now, you are, as participants, you are you can interrupt me, and I can interrupt you. But our dear audience can view only. I will try to manage it. Yeah, my setup is a bit complicated, as you might see. I will give you a small screenshot so you can see. I have the twin screen setup, plus I have another machine running here, because then I can hopefully service the public on the YouTube channel to the left of me, and I can watch the chat room here in these in the Zoom's webinar, and the mail system. So if my eyes are flickering a bit back and forth, you know why. It's because there are different screens I have to take care of. I will do my best. So the program of today is that we have 3 sessions. The first session will end approx 11:30-ish. And we have in the first session, we have 3 presentations. The first by the project leader, Carolina Sonske. And then this introduction is followed by Marie Conger, who has specialized herself in social media. And then we will welcome our colleagues from the Swedish National Board, Maria Karlsson, Åsa Larsson, and Björn Sundberg. So welcome to all of you, all the presenters, and I will, when time comes, then I will present the speakers for the second session, and at the third session around 13:45-ish, I will give the chair to my good colleague, Laura Megatagny, who will then lead the roundtable discussion. So with these words, and we have 10:12, so we are 7 minutes delayed, and there's hardly no chance of catching that up. So sorry for that, and I will give the word to Carolina. So Carolina, please.
Good morning. Please give me a minute. I hope you all see the presentation right now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karolina Cząstka, and today, together with Bartosz Świątkowski, who is one of the authors of this presentation, we represent University of Gdańsk, who is the lead partner of this project. Personally, I'm also working at Archaeological Museum in Gdańsk, and plan for today was to make the presentation outside because we are near the absolutely beautiful stronghold in Sopot, but the weather is very November, I would say. During this, for the second edition of ArchaeoBalt Project webinar, we want to focus on archaeotourism and social media, especially how can we more fully realize the touristic potential of archaeological heritage in the Baltic Sea region. Social media can significantly contribute to its promotion and in the resultant economical development in the region. It has become one of the key forms of creating and sharing information with a wider audience, especially in our current pandemic times. During the webinar, we will be exploring forms of the best practice, new trends in promoting archaeology, archaeotourism, cultural heritage, as well as ways of building and developing the archaeotouristic audience in the region. But before we start the discussion, we would like to give you a brief introduction to ArchaeoBalt project, especially for the person who did not participate during the first webinar. During this presentation, I would like to tell you a little bit more about way of understanding archaeotourism, how we work and how we deal with the cultural heritage, what are the origins and the main goals of ArchaeoBalt project. During our desk studies, when we were preparing this project, we find two areas in which we should work. First, it is archaeotourism. For us as archaeologists, this term is quite obvious, but for the general public, the way of spending free time near the archaeological heritage is not very obvious. That's why we also observe that there's potential of archaeological heritage in the Baltic Sea region, especially in the touristic aspect, is not fully used. People usually, when we are talking about archaeology, they are thinking mostly about ancient Rome, Greece, and Egypt. They don't see the potential of Baltic heritage, and this is one of the reasons why we would like to work with this area, especially that archaeotourism is able to cooperate or be linked with sustainable green and blue tourism, well-being tourism, as well as idea of slow traveling. So we see here a big potential. The second challenge, which we observe, is the knowledge, the general knowledge about the Baltic Sea region. As a researcher, we observed that we know very well our regions, but there is still a problem to see one is on opposite side. So during this project, we would like to also create a coherent story about the Baltic Sea region. As of course, it is a process, but I hope that we will be able to start doing it during this project. We have a few partners. The general idea is the cooperation between universities and the museums. Universities which create the knowledge and museums which disseminate it. A lead partner is University of Gdańsk, and our partners are Aarhus University, Lund University, Bornholms Museum, and Museum of Gdańsk. ArchaeoBalt project is part of Interreg Seoul Baltic Program 2014-2020, which is co-financed by European Development Fund. What is the origin? For the last 10 years, as the University of Gdańsk, we have a great pleasure to cooperate with Bornholms Museum. And local museum has very nice traditions that during the excavations, usually during one of the last days, they prepare event which they called Open Day. And people are able to come and see the archaeological sites, see the findings, get some first information about the interpretation of the findings and the place which was discovered during the excavations. For us, very important moment were the excavations during 2014 on North Sonnegaard. Is one of the biggest and most well-known graveyard for the migration period in Denmark. And we were completely surprised because during the open day visited us more than 300 visitors. And we saw that people are very interested in archaeology, and we see this touristic potential related with archaeology and archaeotourism. During the next season on North Sonnegaard in 2016, we decided that we would like to link it a little bit more with the touristic organization, and we were part of Culture Week on Bornholm. And there was also a lot of people who were coming and seeing this unique place. And that was the origin, why we wanted to start preparing this, I would say, unique project. The main motive in our project is to link the places in the Baltic Sea region. And the key for us are the places of power and rituals. We decided to choose 5 very unique places for various periods. First of them is Upokra near Lund. It's a settlement which functioned between the 1st century before the Christ and to the end of 10th century after the Christ. This place was important because of regional and local power and religion. It is the place where was discovered one of the first pagan temple in the region. During the excavations, there were also found a lot of beautiful findings, also a gold guber, small gold votive folias. Next places are located on Bornholm. It's Sortemult, which function more or less at the same time as Upokra. Down there was also discovered a settlement with a temple. And the place is very famous because of the biggest collection of gold guber. Right now, from this place is known nearly 3,000 of the small, beautiful objects. On Bornholm, we are also working on Smorenia, which is more or less in the central part of the island. And during the 6th and 7th century after the Christ, people were coming down there during the summer or winter solstice and offered various goods like glass beads, crystal beads, gold gubers. In this place was discovered a spring which was surrounded by lines of pits. In the southern part of the Baltic, we also decided to add to the project 2 places. First of them is Ovid stronghold. And here, when I'm using the term stronghold, I'm thinking about more or less fortified settlement. Ovid is the biggest stronghold in one of the biggest strongholds in Pomerania, which was linked with the merchant trade and functioned during the 10th and the beginning of 12th century. And the last but not least is Never Conquered Gate of Poland and Gdańsk. Wisłoujście Fortress. It was very important administration point in Gdańsk, which was strongly linked with the fortification which surrounded the city. And this place functioned between 13th and I would say the beginning of 20th century. Then you may see that we have a few very different and unique places, thanks to which we would like to build this coherent story about the Baltic Sea region. And one of the form is archaeotourism. How we are working in our ArchaeoBalt project, how we want to link all these places via various forms. I would say that we have two pillars. One pillar first pillar is high quality research in archaeological and historical aspects. And second pillar are the activities related to tourism and to cooperation in social media. All these events which we have and all these activities, we try to do all together, and thanks to that, build this coherent story. First of them, there are open days, during which people are able to come and see how we're working during the excavations. We also prepare more traditional lectures. Then workshops for children, families, school groups, which are very popular form. We prepared last year this kind of activities in 2019 at Uppsala, but also at Ovid's stronghold. Museum of Gdańsk prepare more exclusive form of guiding tours, which called ArchaeoUrbex, and audience are able to come and see the places which are not usually, which is not usually possible to see during the regular trips, and they are guided also by specialists. Festivals. We participate in festivals. During this year, we had opportunity to be part of Hakuna Matata festival in Gdynia, which was a festival for traveling families. But we also organize and support other festivals. In 2019, there were two festivals linked with ArchaeoBalt project. One, it was Wisłoujście 1577, and it was organized in July. And second festival was Vandal Days at Uppsala in August. Some first results on ArchaeoBalt in the numbers. During the open days in 2019 at Sortemot, Uppsala, Ovid's, Wisłoujście, Smorge, we had nearly 6,000 guests. On festivals, visited us almost 10,500 people. So in totally, during the 2019, nearly 17,000 of participants visited our events. I would say that the number acquired, they are very good, I would say, and impressive. During 2020, because of the pandemic situation, we had to postpone bigger part of the events. Excavations were organized only in Sweden in June and in September in Uppsala. So this year is very, very specific also for us, and it's a big challenge how to make a touristic project during the pandemic times. Another form in which we are linking our places is, I would say, more traditional way, or exhibitions. We prepare the exhibition in national languages, which you are able to see in each of the, which you will be able to see in each of the places, which are part of the project. In this exhibition are presented all the archaeological sites which are part of the ArchaeoBalt project. And the second level, at the end of the project, we would like to prepare exhibition which will summary the whole project. So here we also have two forms. Another opportunity, more for related with children, we prepared our partners, Museum of Dance, they're preparing a board game. You may see here right now the demo. So the player will be able to travel around the Baltic. They will have some challenges, and they will have to cooperate together to find a good or proper solutions. So it's in preparation. We are open for new technologies, and we also make an experiments. Part of our project is also VR activities. We prepared three forms for Upokra, for Sortemult, and for Wisłoujście, but we are using two methods. First, there's a model like at Wisłoujście, and second, it's using a camera 300-degree camera. So you may see here Professor Mats Roslund, who is guiding himself, and enjoy the tour. Very important area for us, especially in pandemic times, are social media, and that's also the reason why we meet all together today here. You are able to find us at YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We start also working with the website, which will be Virtual Museum of South Baltic. And on this website, you will be able to find the information about the archaeological sites, archaeotouristic attraction in the region, which will be also prepared or supported by the scientists in popular form. And more about social media will tell during the next presentation Marie Conger, so I will not focus on this topic more. How we see the future, and what can we see about the durability? What are the goals? What should be at the end of this project? All these elements which are prepared at the moment will be necessary for us to create a network of archaeological centers in the Baltic Sea region. One of the centers already exists in Upokra, and Upokra has a long tradition. Other places will be created, one at Wisłoujście and second one on Bornholm. Bornholm's Archaeological Research Center, well, the previous localization was in Stein, but right now we know that it will be built in Rone, so in the biggest town on Bornholm. Second element is the final protocol, in which we would like to describe our experiences related to the project, also with social media, but also with cooperation with touristic organizations, and find some information about the research. Third element, it is prepare a more scientific publication in which we'll present the results of project. Our activities are also supported by our associated partners. We cooperate with Steneline, ferry company, Zew Północy, a Scandinavian magazine, Archeologia Żywa, Archaeological magazine, and today is with us Radosław Biel, who will participate during the roundtable. Interguides and Binor, they're a touristic company. We have associated partner from Lithuania, Zastupia Archeologia, and Baltic Tourism Health Cluster, who is also interested in our results. As a project, we cooperate with other institutions, with Ovid Stronghold, with Archaeological Center at Upokra, and Museum of Slavonic Mythology in Ovid. So I hope I was able to, very briefly, to present you ArchaeoBalt project. If you would like to know more about these unique places which are part of our project, you are very welcome to look at our YouTube channel at the first webinar, and during which all the persons who are involved in the project present the first results related to excavations and research at Ovid, Wisłoujście, Smoryń, as well as Sortemult and Upokra. So thank you very much, and I hope that it will be, I'm more than sure it will be a fantastic day and we'll find a lot of inspirational solutions for us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Carolina, for this introduction. And we, in fact, have been able to catch up on time, which is very
did my best.
which is very nice. So I can see on the YouTube there is no questions from that channel, and so I will. Yeah, the possibility is to ask our panelists if you have a question to Carolina or a comment. Yeah, I mean, yeah, then I will introduce our next speaker, Marie Conger, who has written a master's thesis on the ArchaeoBalt project. So if you shortly could introduce to yourself and your work, Maria, that would be, I think, helpful. So, so Maria, are you okay with that?
Yes, I do have a presentation. Should I throw that up now?
Does your presentation include a presentation of yourself, your work, or?
I can give a little overview of that before I put the presentation up then.
Good.
So thank you for the introduction. As Jens said, my name is Marie. I recently completed my master's degree program in sustainable heritage management at Aarhus University. I joined the ArchaeoBalt social media team in May of 2019 as an intern and have stayed involved in the project since the completion of my internship as a social media consultant. I was particularly drawn to the ArchaeoBalt project because of my background in archaeology and an interest in the dissemination of the archaeological process and its discoveries to the public. So today I'll be presenting information that comes in part from a chapter of my master's thesis, where I examined how social media can be used as a tool for promoting archaeotourism.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And then we have our presentation by Marie, and it's called ArchaeoBalt Online, Social Media Management as an International Effort. So please take it from here, Marie.
Okay. Okay, does that look good? All right, I'm seeing nodding heads, excellent. Okay, so yes, as Jens said, this is specifically looking at social media management as an international effort, and this has been something with the ArchaeoBalt project that we've really worked with, because we have had social media managers from all of the different partner organizations involved in this from the beginning. So first, we will look at the at ArchaeoBalt's social media strategy heading into the first year of excavations and how it was set up as an international effort from the beginning. The aims for ArchaeoBalt's social media program, as summarized here, were to disseminate information about the ArchaeoBalt project, archaeotourism, Baltic heritage, and the Interreg South Baltic program, as well as show the cross-border character of the project's actions in social media. The aims reflected the project's main goal of establishing a cross-border archaeotourist route in the South Baltic Sea region, experimentation with social media strategies is a vital approach for heritage organizations to find the methods that work best for them. And this approach of trial and error was ArchaeoBalt's main strategy for social media content during the project's first year of implementation, which allowed for a certain amount of freedom to try out different types of posts and see what worked best in terms of audience engagement. One of the major challenges, one of the major social media challenges for organizations is a lack of human resources. By design, social media accounts are simple to create. It usually only takes a few clicks of a mouse on any platform to set that up, but successfully managing those pages can take more time than realized at the outset. The amount of time spent managing social media content depends on the needs of the organization, and suggestions as to the optimum time spent on them can vary. For individuals or small teams managing content across several platforms, as is the case with ArchaeoBalt, marketing experts suggest anywhere from around 4 to 12 hours per week spent planning, implementing, and managing strategy results. To that end, ArchaeoBalt formed a team of information managers between the project's 5 partner organizations, of which I was part of as a social media intern, to collaborate on creating social media posts. Representatives from each organization were responsible for creating content for and from their events and posting to ArchaeoBalt's Facebook and Instagram pages during excavations and other ArchaeoBalt related events. We began with pages on Facebook and Instagram in 2019. And as of October 1st of this year, it has 790 followers on Facebook page and 370 on Instagram. And I actually have some more updated numbers. As of this morning, I believe we're up to around 840 followers on Facebook. And then, as Carolina mentioned earlier, we are now on Twitter as of August of this year. And a quick look at our audience. As part of my master's thesis, I also did a study of the follower demographics for ArchaeoBalt's Facebook and Instagram pages. And this revealed that the project's online audience could be grouped into one or more of the following categories. First are the students, volunteers, and other ArchaeoBalt affiliates who have been directly involved in excavations or other project activities. The site visitors who are looking to gather information before their visit and or wish to follow up with the project afterwards. Residents living near one of the excavations who are interested in archaeology and heritage. Heritage enthusiasts who are unable to visit but are interested in learning more about the sites, about Baltic heritage, or about archaeology in general. And finally, those who are connected to individuals involved in the project who may originally be from outside the South Baltic Sea region. I know, for example, I'm pretty sure that my mom follows us on Facebook, even though she's from the US. So using this information, ArchaeoBalt's information managers can use these categories to help create content that one or more of these groups will find interesting and engaging. So with that strategy in mind and having identified our audience, we can now turn to look at how the management with this international team has worked in practice. And first we'll address the benefits that have come about through working with this team. The strategy worked really well in terms of balancing the workload between multiple people. As I mentioned earlier, it can, take an unexpected amount of time to actually create and manage content for these pages. And especially as the information managers fill additional roles both within and outside of the project during excavations and throughout the year, it has been really helpful to be able to spread this workload out. Additionally, this allowed for continued coverage throughout the excavation season. So here is a timeline of the ArchaeoBalt associated activities in 2019. And you can see, except for there's a break there in August where there was a holiday and there weren't any events. at the time, but there were frequent posts, several times a week, sometimes every day from May through late September. And then during the August break, there were posts still being made about both the results of previous events as well as hyping up the upcoming events. So there was never a lull in content at this time. And then finally, there were also more opportunities for interactions with an international audience due to the language spread of the information managers. ArchaeoBalt mostly posts in English, but of course the main languages of the audience are Polish, Danish, or Swedish. The Facebook Translate tool makes it easy for our followers to read posts in their own language, but having team members able to respond to comments in those languages is an added bonus that can lead to greater audience engagement. Of course, this type of working with an international team is not without its challenges. The first was the different writing styles of the information managers led to a lack of a cohesive voice for the ArchaeoBalt page. I have an example of that here. On the left, we have an example of a post from the Poland team, and they make greater use of emojis and exciting language, whereas posts from the Swedish and Danish teams, which I have examples of on the right, are more strictly information oriented or have been up to this point. Organizations often overlook brand voice on social media, but it is a really important aspect that works to connect with the target audience and makes the page feel unique to them in an already oversaturated market. Identifying a brand voice first requires identifying the target audience, which we saw a couple slides ago. So with this target audience in mind, one method ArchaeoBalt can utilize to ensure consistent voice between different writers and platforms is to create a brand voice document to act as an overarching policy that can be referenced by the information managers whenever they're writing a new post. Alternatively, posts can be reviewed by a single team member who has a firm grasp of ArchaeoBalt's voice to refine them before they're published. Another challenge was the difficulty in coordinating a schedule between the various page administrators. If we return to the timeline that we looked at earlier, from late spring through early autumn, the posts were primarily created at the sites that had ongoing excavations or other ArchaeoBalt related events. This was not an issue most of the time, but there occasionally were overlaps of posts from the different locations that flipped back and forth between the sites. So I have one example here. It's just a series of posts that show this back and forth between the different excavations at Uppsala and Ovitz over the course of a week. And when presented in this way, the posts can appear to have a disjointed nature that doesn't necessarily reflect that the interconnections that ArchaeoBalt is trying to foster through the Archaeo route. However, after the completion of the 2019 field season, there was more focus on featuring the Archaeo route through the series of ArchaeoBalt numbers posts, which Carolina also showed earlier. And this reflects the project's first year of events and also set the precedent for a greater emphasis on establishing a connection between the sites going forward. Of course, the 2020 season did not go as planned. The second year of the project was meant to build on those strategies that we found that worked best. But unfortunately, the excavations and other events in Denmark and Poland had to be put on hold due to Corona. However, the flexibility of ArchaeoBalt's social media strategy has allowed it to adapt and adjust. There were several series posts that provided broader information on the ArchaeoBalt sites and Baltic archaeotourism. These had varying rates of success. So the post over on the left is an example of one of our history of posts. This looks specifically at the history of the archaeology of the site. So this one is for Sodemul. There was also one for Ovets, which sort of looks at how the site was discovered, information about previous excavations that took place at the site. And these types of posts were actually quite successful in that they received a lot of engagement through likes. Over on the right was another initiative called Summer with ArchaeoBalt and Archaeotourism. And the idea was to encourage the use of the hashtag ArchaeoBalt to create user-generated content and get people to share their favorite photos of archaeological sites around the Baltic. But unfortunately, this strategy received little engagement. So this shows kind of how important it is to try out new things and see what works and what doesn't to be able to create a stronger strategy moving forward. There was also great new content from Uppsala as they held excavations this year. And this helped keep our audience engaged by providing new material from Sweden, along with the recycled material from last year's excavations in Poland and Denmark. And I just want to look at some of our social media highlights and take a look at our best performing posts that we had. So the post here on the left was actually the most successful post in terms of reach and engagement. And these were on Facebook. And the way that these numbers are calculated are the reach and engagement with the original post, as well as with all of the shares that this post receives. So this post with the little horse figurine and the guldgruva was shared by many people, and that increased the reach up to 8,500 people, and it received 1,500 engagements. And that one is from Sordemul. And then the post on the right is from Uppsala, and again, that one was also very successful with a reach of 7,400 and engagement count again of 1,500. Also successful were videos. There were not nearly as many videos posted as there were photos. Again, part of that is just the time it takes to process and produce these videos. But the Facebook algorithm actually prefers videos, so it is more likely to show videos to more people. The engagement rate, you'll notice, is much lower than the photos, and that is because the Facebook Insights calculates the engagement rate differently for photos and videos. But if we look at the reach here for some of these videos, we can say that they performed really well. And we have examples here from both Uppsala and Ovets. And then finally, look at some of our top posts on Instagram. Again, we have the post with the horse figurine, and the guldgruva was the second photo that isn't shown here. These numbers do seem much lower than the Facebook, but that also has to do with, again, how the reach is calculated, because Facebook is all about sharing posts and reaching more people, whereas with Instagram, your posts are shared with your followers or discovered through hashtags. So it's really important to have kind of a savvy use of hashtags on Instagram. And as we can see here, the two other posts are actually part of the History of series that we had, or that I had mentioned earlier. So these posts, these highlights here show that there was engagement with material and content from all of the sites. And there is a willingness to engage with the content even when there are no ongoing excavations, and especially during Corona times when everything is sort of always up in the air about excavations and events and when and if and how they will happen. This does show that social media is, quite a powerful tool for still being able to connect with our audience. And it also suggests a future focus for providing more video content, especially as this is something that is supported by the Facebook algorithm. So just to wrap it up with a few key takeaways that I think come out of this. First is that a geographically and linguistically diverse social media team can help to ensure fresh content and satisfying interactions with followers. Also, managing a social media team as part of, or managing social media as part of an international team comes with many challenges, but these can be mitigated through a solid social media strategy and good communication between the information managers. And finally, flexibility is very, very important. This is in regard to both unexpected circumstances, such as Corona, but also to keep up with the constantly changing social media trends. So that is all I have for now. So thank you all very much for your time, and I look forward to continued conversation during the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. I mean, this is, yeah, I had the pleasure of having you on the dig at Sortemul. And I think you co-op with small Laura, as we called her, Laura Alquist, who also participated in your work, and you also for your thesis studied the behavior of the public by interviewing and so could you maybe please tell us a bit about that process of how to, let's say, evaluate while you're, I mean, you have been developing or constructing while and at the same time, let's say, let's forget, no, you have practically been moving into the house while it's under construction, so to speak. So could you please tell us a bit about that part of your work?
Yeah, so in my thesis, I didn't look just at social media, but also at how the ArchaeoBalt project operates at different scales. So like you said, I was at Sortemul for 2 weeks during the excavation. During that time, I observed the visitors, and I also interviewed many of the students who served as guides around the site. I also looked at how the ArchaeoBalt project operates at the level of ArchaeoRoot, particularly in regards to how it addresses issues of sustainability and accessibility. And then finally, with the realm of social media. So it has been really interesting, seeing this project evolve and kind of becoming more involved in the public aspect of it. My background is in archaeology, and it's second nature to want to be down there in the trench doing the digging. But I think that the response that this project has gotten from people, which has been, from my understanding, a lot more than maybe was initially expected. And that shows that, people are really interested in archaeology and not just in, the finds. People obviously, they came to Sortemul and they wanted to see the guldgruber, they wanted to see the gold. But what I learned from the students when I interviewed them is that they were also just as interested in the process. They were like, what is the proper technique? What is, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Why do you need to sort all of these little pieces? And how do you tell what is stone from bone from pottery? And then again, with this extra level of social media, that allows us to reach more people who aren't necessarily able to come to the site, but still do have this interest and this passion in what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, there's a lot to ask. I mean, for instance, how you combine the social media with the physical visits and so on and so on. But let's save these questions for the roundtable, maybe. Okay, would that be okay? Because time is running, and I would welcome our colleagues from the Swedish National Heritage Board, Maria Karlsson, Åsa Larsson, and Björn Sundberg. Now, Åsa has told me that she will do the presentation. Is that correctly understood, Åsa?
Well, I will be sharing my screen, but we will jump between speakers.
Good. And to be honest, I hope it works that the different speakers, when they are raising their voice, that they also will be displayed on the YouTube channel. But I don't know. We haven't tried yet. So please, Åsa, and take it from here.
Thank you very much. I wondered, should we give a very short presentation, Maria, Björn, and I, just who we are? So I'll start. I work with, I'm an archaeologist in my background, and I'm working with digitizing heritage and making sure that collections can be used and researched in a wider perspective. And Mia, should you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, hello, I'm Mia Karlsson. I work as an operations developer at the National Heritage Board. I have a background in archaeology as well, but I'm working mainly with heritage data now within technical infrastructure. So, yeah.
Yep. My name is Björn Sundberg, and I also work in the same team as Maria with K-Samsök, or SOC, which is the National Aggregator for Cultural Heritage Data in Sweden. I have a background in building conservation, but also mainly I've been working for quite a lot of time with historical festivals, and I used to be the head organizer of a big medieval festival in Sweden.
Great. So I'll start sharing the screen, and I will see. There we go. And hopefully you're seeing it right now. And I will start with the presentation, and then the other one will jump in. So open cultural heritage and social media at the Swedish National Heritage Board. So very shortly, the Swedish National Heritage Board is a government agency. We are overseeing national heritage management. We provide infrastructures for cultural heritage information. We help coordinate the digitization of cultural heritage. And we support museums and heritage organizations through development and cooperation, as well as research funding. We also have two visitor centers, Gamla Uppsala Museum and Glimmingehus, that we manage, and I'll be talking a bit about them today, specifically because they have been using social media as an outreach tool. So Gamla Uppsala Museum and Glimmingehus, the Uppsala Museum is located by the Iron Age Royal Mounds of Old Uppsala and is headed by Linda Clementsson. And Glimmingehus is a late medieval stronghold in Scania, Skåne, headed by Jan Olofsson. And these places they're not museums in the classical sense. They don't have their own collections. So they have very small teams. It's the head of the unit and a few pedagogues and coordinators and extra staff during peak seasons, normal peak seasons, I should say. So as you can imagine, they have to be a bit creative about how to managed a role reaching different kinds of groups, the public, schools, etc. So Facebook has become one of the most important arenas that they are using for outreach and visibility of what they're doing, with information about physical and digital events, and that can be also pushed by paying for small ads. They upload a lot of videos, they have host live events, and they have a lot of engagement in the comments. So this is from a bit earlier this week, but I checked in this morning, and Gamla Uppsala Museum is now over 13,000 followers. So they've been quite successful in this regard. They work a lot with, they started working mainly last year with posting short thematic videos under certain themes, such as myth versus facts, showing various artifacts and explaining them, talking about traditions and folklore, talking about crafts and practices. Some of them were aimed at children, some at adults, some about just about children and adults. And they have also longer live events with invited speakers, researchers, and experts. As well as they organize some quizzes with the help of Kahoot. They've organized what we call in Sweden fika, a digital fika, which is a hangout, which is a bit more informal with someone invited, talking a bit about a topic, and anyone who wants to can join in. And by using this, of course, other people help with spreading information by tagging the museum, tagging their events, and engaging with them. The most popular videos are the ones that are featuring these presentations by invited researchers and specialists. It's not always about Uppsala, or it could be sometimes about Östergötland, or sometimes about any other subject that deals with prehistory in general. And it's been mostly done these last 6 months, and just over the past 4 months, some of these live events have been watched between 8,000 to over 14,000 times. Most people watch live, but then they are, of course, able to watch them after the fact. So this number keeps rising. And this rather large amount of people watching these videos is, of course, a result from building up a loyal following through continuously offering new content, promoting events, and interacting with the attendees. And we can really see that there is a lot of interaction also in the comment sections during the live events, with questions asked and answered. They also make the videos available on their YouTube channel after the fact. So they don't live send on YouTube, they live send on Facebook. And then they post most of the videos after the fact on YouTube channel. However, since this is after the fact, and since YouTube is not as conducive for interaction for this particular kind of content, there are far fewer viewings and comments on that platform. And Glimmingehus has been working also with developing methods for 3D scanning. So they this autumn, they have posted a lot of 3D models with interactive information about this old stronghold on Sketchfab. And these are uploaded as fairly open licenses that you are able to use as long as you attribute where it comes from. You can use it in many different ways. And they made it findable by adding tagging so that people can find that anyone who's interested in, for instance, medieval structures. And it will enable some engagement with likes and comments, embedding, sharing, downloading, and other people can add their content to their own collections. So this is something that's just recently they started doing, but it's quite interesting to see how it will develop. And they also, since the pandemic made sure that it would be difficult for schools to visit this very interesting place, they usually work a lot with school classes. So they've offered up Zoom meetings for teachers to introduce them to what kind of online resources that are available and how the teachers can use that in their classroom instead during this time. So I'm going to hand off now to Mia, I think.
Thank you, Åsa. Well, as said, my name is Mia. And my colleague Björn and I have today the pleasure to show you a bit how we are working with social media as a platform to increase the use of cultural heritage data from KåSamSök, or as Björn said, SOC in English. SOC is a web service that harvests metadata from databases of heritage institutions in Sweden. Our mission is to make it easier for people to access and use cultural heritage data in their work, in education, or for pleasure. To describe the infrastructure, you can say that a lot of different pipes with data are combined in one single access point. The data is harmonized to make it easier to use, and the infrastructure makes it also possible to link the data in a semantic way. Today, we harvest data from more than 75 heritage institutions, and we are making more than 8.8 million objects available. Alongside the technical infrastructure, we also work to increase the amount and the quality of the data, and we promote the data to encourage use. We also facilitate a network for the partners to SOC to enable sharing of experiences and to support collaborations. We are trying to reach our audience and our users through a lot of different channels, and social media are among these. Today, we will show you two of our most recent outreach activities on Pinterest and on Instagram. And let's see also, I think you have, yeah, there we go. For quite a while, we have been thinking of trying out Pinterest to meet a new audience. Pinterest is a platform where we think we can encourage the use of heritage data for joy and pleasure, the third part in our mission that I just mentioned. We do not have a goal to reach out to professionals, educators, developers, or researchers here. Instead, this is a platform for a broad outreach to an audience with certain interests. Through this activity, we do not have a focus to drive traffic to our own search portal, Gamla. Instead, we want to meet our audience on a platform where they are already active. We started to look around how other institutions have used Pinterest for outreach, and we had a meeting with Europeana, the European infrastructure for cultural heritage data, to listen to their experience. From this, we went on to start an account on Pinterest, or at least we tried to, but suddenly we had to rethink our plans. For today, there is a challenge of using an American cloud-based service as a national agency in Sweden, since the service is not compliant with general data protection regulations. So a bit into the planning, we actually got a no from our lawyers to proceed with the launch of our account. But we didn't want to give up on our idea, so we solved this issue by simply not publishing any personal data of now living persons. This means that we do not add any names on the pins, and the photos we publish are from 1920 at the latest to ensure that depicted persons are no longer alive. And of course, all images have to be openly licensed, since the Heritage Board has a policy to use only open data. With this problem solved, we created an account in late March this year. The first content was published at the end of April, and we tried to follow some trending topics on Pinterest, such as gardening, food, pets, and fashion. So our first boards were images with knitted mittens, vintage lady shoes, gardens, and beards. The first week, we got well over 4,000 visits without doing anything except publishing pins and boards. The only thing we add, except from the image itself, is the name of the institution who provided the data to SOC and the right statement for the image. We keep track of a publication in a simple Excel sheet, which we share with our partners to enable collaborations. And we have today published 21 boards with 461 pins in total. So what about the outcome then? As you can see here, we had at least 10,000 views of our pins last month. We are quite happy with these numbers since it is a new account and we do not have that much content, and the workload to publish it is quite small. But what is really interesting here is the overall content pinned from Gamla. Next slide, please, Åsa. We verified the webpage of our search portal Gamla on Pinterest on the 1st of June, And from this date, we can see statistics on how content from Gamla is used by others. This has actually been an eye-opener. We knew that people use the content from Gamla, but not to this extent. Total views up till last of October is slightly more than 1 million, but only 28% of these views are on pins that the SOC team have published. This is clearly visible on this slide, where you can see a screenshot from the analysis tool in Pinterest. The red line shows pins that our team have published, and the blue line represents pins that other users have made from content in Gamla. As you can see, we had a huge peak in the middle of the summer. This is where we can find our all-time high pin, a public domain photo from the Museum Jamtli with almost 27,000 views during 2 days. This was published in a board named Mountain Adventures of the Past, and we think we managed to ride on the waves of the phenomena staycation. Even if pushing users to our own search portal Gamla wasn't one of our objectives, we can see that the direct traffic from Pinterest has increased by 52% up till now, compared to the same period last year. The major insight so far from this activity is that if you open up your data and publish it online, things will happen. You don't have to do all the work on your own. Sometimes you have to push it a bit, but when people have discovered the treasure chest you have, they will use it. We have planned to use Pinterest for 1 year and then evaluate the outcome. The activity is planned in 3 phases. The initial phase, where we set up the account and filled it with content quite random. The middle phase, where we are right now, when we're not publishing much content at all. And the last page, which will start in December. And here we will set up a quite strict publication agenda with boards connected to trends and themes such as Christmas, New Year, and Public Domain Day. In the end, we hope that we can, in this way, be able to draw some conclusions about what works well on Pinterest. But I think we can already say that we will continue to publish boards to the audience on Pinterest. The workload is fairly small, and the potential for outreach is huge. And it's quite fun to create these tiny curated entries to the content in SOC. Our next step is to try to encourage our partners in the network to participate in creating pins. And Björn, do you want to tell us something about our Instagram activity?
Absolutely. Could go to the next view. We've had 2 recent Instagram campaigns, and those have been collaborations with the partners as joint ventures together with current or upcoming partners, and also encouraging the public to join in through use of hashtags, basically. Of course, the why is to build companions together with partners and also activate the cultural heritage data in a fun and collaborative way. That has been an idea to form a subject where you, which is understandable to both the public and the and also the partners. The 2 campaigns that we have run recently are Nils Holgersson flyger igen, which might not seem a lot of sense to people outside of Sweden, but there's a very, very famous novel about young child that flies on the back of a swan through all the landscapes of Sweden. So therefore, the idea behind that campaign was to publish an open cultural heritage photo from every part of Sweden, from every landscape of Sweden, and also encourage others to join in and using the same hashtag. We've also currently running together with the labor museums based on the hashtag Landet vi byggde, the land we built, with which both features weekly posts together with partners and also open encouragement for anyone else to join in. Also, could you go for next slide? what we've learned here from social media projects is that if you want to do collaborations together with partners or others, you have to be quite specific to make sure that people do understand what they are about to deliver and why they should be doing that. It might be hard for your partners to find time and take the effort to actually join in. So you have to be settled for helping them out with providing forms and guidance, and also if you're concerned with the licensing of pictures, especially if you're working with smaller museums, etc., there might be the fact that much of the material is not licensed at all through Creative Commons or similar licenses. So since most or if not all of these services are cloud-based and non-European, you will have to consider that fact and help your partners to out there. Also, read up on the platform that you are doing the joint ventures, the joint projects on. Every platform has its pros and cons. For example, Instagram is heavily oriented towards aesthetics, while other platforms might have different keys to success. There is no single one platform that will fulfill all your needs, and what works on one platform might not work on another. So do your research there. Also, on all social media, interaction is a huge benefit. You know all about this, but if you ask a question, or if you give people the possibility to interact and encourage interaction, and to make people share their stories, share your post, it will attract the algorithms and help your reach. This is a very, very important key point. If there is nothing for the audience to react to, you will get a lower reach. That's just how it works. So we could go for the next slide. A little bit of general ideas about how to reach audiences through social media. First of all, as we've already been into, there's a diversity out there. Consider which platform you want to use, and especially if you want to reach a specific audience, there's probably not going to be the same success factors if you use Instagram and LinkedIn. They are two totally different platforms, and they have very different key points of success. So you have to be precise there if you want to reach a specific audience, and also consider what you want to establish. You also have to adapt the content to the selected target group. If you want the leisure, then you will probably have to find beautiful looking images, something that just attracts a like and maybe catch the eye of your target group. If you want to create discussion, then maybe a statement could be the best idea to start up the traction there, and so forth. And also decide if it will be a long or a short-term activity, and what relations you do want to build with your audience. Is it leisure? Is it an idea? Is it a project you want to promote, etc., etc.? That will you will have to consider that. Also, the next part is adaptability isn't always as easy as one might think. There isn't possible to reach every target groups or use it through one platform, and also it's not easy to convert followers between platforms. For one example, if you build a strong following on Facebook or Instagram, those are not at all readily converted into YouTube followers, as we saw, for example, in the Gamla Uppsala case there, because there are different mechanisms at play, and there's also YouTube works in a specific way where if you follow a user, follow a channel on YouTube, you will get all of their content straight to your following there. So therefore, people will be more reluctant to follow a lot of channels, which is totally the opposite of Facebook, where you can easily, as a user, follow 500 or 1,000 pages, and that will not clutter your flow. So there's a difference there, and it's not easy to convert them. And as always, also durability and Fingerspitzgefühl is the key there. Take it into account that you will have to react to interaction on the platform for a long time. If you post something, there might be someone following up on it a month ahead of time, and it might be in the evening, etc. You will have to have some kind of idea of how to keep up with your following. And the longer you keep your channel going, the larger your traction will grow if you are also active. And another key point, like Mia said on the Pinterest channel, try to connect to ongoing trends. There are global trends out there, and if you follow them, you will have a bigger chance of building attraction. So, just for the next slide.
Yeah, so that was our presentation, and thank you very much for listening in.
Yeah, thank you for an exciting presentation. And I have, the time is, yeah, we are a bit late. So we could take a quick question from or comment from the panel before we then would take our lunch break. So if there are any questions right now, doesn't...
I think Laura is raising her finger.
Okay, Laura.
Hi, thank you everybody for all your papers. They were really fascinating, particularly having so many social media experts. So I want to pick your brains a little bit. One of the things I was wondering is there anything you have to be careful with on social media in terms of what you put out there? I know you've mentioned about making sure you have the rights to images and things like that, but because it's such an interactive forum, have you found anything that went away you didn't want it to, or was there any problems with interactions? Because I've noticed in Facebook there've been problems on some of the British archaeology Facebook groups around, white supremacists tying into discussions on Vikings and things like that. So I just wondered if that's happened at all in Sweden or Denmark.
I can say that it should be Linda Clementsson maybe who answers this. So I haven't double checked with them. They haven't had that much problem from what I understand, but of course, and as Björn noted, you have to be prepared to look into if some discussions go out of bounds. But mostly it's been okay. But from my personal experience working with social media in different aspects, it tends to be when you're talking about DNA or other things like certain things connected with Vikings, that's when things usually go off the rails. But actually, most of the interactions with the Gamla Uppsala Museum, despite the fact that it's such a central place, has been extremely positive, and people are very engaged. And I think also the positive thing with Facebook is that people tends to be a bit more, since you are mostly interacting under your own name. They tend to be a bit easier to deal with than when it's on YouTube, when people can be completely anonymous. But I don't know if anyone has other experiences.
Mats, you have
not a question, but a comment to what kind of problems might emerge when you go out on the media. It's one question that was written, and also a discussion, was about the identity or naming of the periods. When we started the Vendel period days, for instance, there were certain regionalists in Skåne that said, why use a central Swedish term for a situation which is further south? And I think we could answer them quite well, how these periods, the names of them were constructed, but also the reasons why we use them is to communicate with other archaeologists in Europe. Of course, we could use the Merovingian period or the late Germanic Iron Age or something like that. But that became a very interesting discussion.
I would like to just add a small piece to that. Is sometimes you're afraid of the of having your views challenged or such on social media, and if you want to have a big reach, then that is exactly what you would like to have, because if there's a discussion and you're open about it and it grows into interesting topics, that will definitely attract attraction. So don't be afraid of that, but try to keep it civil, of course.
Okay, thank you. So I will close this first session, and hope we will meet again at 11:45, so 11:45. So the lunch break is a bit short, but yeah, well, that should be okay, I hope. So I will stop the live